have some questions. Maybe you would like to know how to find stock price, because one of the problem in stock valuation is really tricky. That's why I decide to host this webinar. So welcome everybody. Thanks for attending this webinar, and hopefully this gonna be useful for you. Okay, so tonight my plan is just briefly go over stock valuation and answer your question if you have any, about the exams or assignments or anything, any issues. So, just want to touch base with you from time to time. I had my first webinar, I had only 3 people, so I thought it was not useful. So I decided not to keep on doing it. If I have a lot of people attending, then I usually do 4 to 5 webinars in 7 weeks class frame. But if I have only few people, then I stop doing it. So, but it's still, I would like to do for the exam. All right. So, anybody has any issue, finding stock price? No. Okay, still I'm gonna go over these three. We have three different types of dividend discount models. We use all of these to find stock price depending on the information you are given. So for example, on your project you did like this one, the constant growth model. And actually zero growth model and constant growth model, they are pretty straightforward. This non-constant growth model is a little bit like, it's a present value of uneven cash flows type of problem. So, but in present value, time value of money, you are given the cash flows, but in stock valuation, you need to figure them out. So that's the only difference. Okay, so let me go with this zero growth model. Basically, when a company is old company here for hundreds of years, then they use all the resources, so they really have no growth. In that situation, they keep on paying dividend, but there is no growth on the dividend. Okay, so let's say if a company pays 25 cents, then it keep on paying 25 cents for rest of the life of the company. I mean, it's forever. But if a company is just little bit still growing, in that situation, they have kind of constant growth every time, maybe 2%, maybe 3%, things like that, or maybe whatever constant. But if a company is rapidly growing, they experience rapid growth in first few years and then they slow down. So in that situation, the dividend keep on changing. So the third type is constant growth model, non-constant growth model. So basically this one is dividend grows in higher rate in the beginning, different rates, and then later on, still is going to be constant. So this one is an example for this zero growth model. So here, this company pays, I mean, it's an old company, so it pays just paid $1.60 dividend, and you believe that the dividend is going to stay same forever. So you see there is no growth, it's just $1.60 dividend per period. Usually companies, they pay dividend quarterly. So this one is basically present value of perpetuity. So we use cash flow or payment divided by discount rate. So here payment is D1. D1 is basically your next dividend. But this one is $1.60, so it does not really matter. It's $1.60 just paid yesterday, so next time is gonna be also $1.60, right? So the D1 does not really matter. D1, D2, D whatever D dividend is still gonna be $1.60. So I put this D straight D1, and then discount rate is cost of capital for the stock, so it's 11% here. So all you need to do is just divide $1.60 by 11%. Okay, you get $14.55. So you see old company, so that's why you see some companies, they're pretty good company, but still their stock price is a small amount. But some companies like Apple, you see $500, $1,000 stock price. It's all about expected future income. Okay, so cash flows. If you are expecting a company is producing more cash flows to the shareholders, you're going to see the stock price higher. So the price comes from the growth in the future. The second type is basically the same problem here, but in this case the dividend grows at the constant rate of 8% forever. Companies basically theoretically they never die, or they never close. So we expect that the $60 dividend is going to keep on increasing by 8% for rest of the life of this company. Still we have 11% discount rate. In that situation, what is the stock price? Okay, so be careful while reading a problem. I said here paid a dividend of $60 yesterday. So actually it's a D0, right? So $60 yesterday, that means it's D0. When you do stock pricing, I mean, always we calculate the value based on the future cash flows. So you don't want to use D0 here, you want to go for D1. So D1 is basically a future value of $60 in one time period, right? So you multiply D0 by 1 plus growth rate is going to be $1.73. Okay, so if you divide $1.73 by RS, which is discount rate minus growth, so basically 11% minus 8% equals to 0.03, so that's a 3%, right? So if you divide dividend D1 by RS minus G, you're gonna get $57.60. You see the difference here from about $15 to all the way to $58, right? Sorry, did I say 50? It's a $15 to all the way to $58 about. So that's a big difference in the stock price. You see, that's 8% growth is resulting that big high stock price. So if a company is growing faster, definitely the stock price should be higher. So these two are pretty much straightforward. There is no trick on it on them. So it's easy to solve. A lot of time, students they get confused because they have different types of non-constant dividend growth. So in that situation, how do we solve this problem? Okay, so I have this same example, but what I did here is, I have different growth rates. For example, for the first next 2 years, it just paid $60 dividend, and then next 2 years dividend is gonna grow by 24%, and following 2 years is gonna be 19%, and after that you expecting the dividend to be 10% forever. Okay, still we have 11% discount rate. So if you just if you just remove this information, uh, if you remove this information, okay, what happens? If you remove this information, what happens here? It just becomes like this problem, right? So basically that means you can apply the same theory, same methodology to calculate this price for this stock, right? So let's put that information back. Okay, so what you need to do here is first find the dividend until the dividend gets constant. Okay, so find the dividend until the dividend gets constant. So here I have D1, D2 the first 2 years, and 3 and 4 following 2 years, and after that it's 10%, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the dividend until it gets constant, right? When the dividend is constant, you can find the stock price in the beginning of the year, just like this above this model. If you know the dividend, next dividend, you can find the price now, right? Same way, if you know your next dividend, you can find the price in the beginning of that year. All right. So what we are doing here is we are finding D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, because this is the fifth year is constant, right? So find dividend until it gets constant. Okay. Then in the beginning of that constant year, find the stock price. Okay. So what I'm doing here is uh, D1 D0 times 1 plus 24% is D1 here, and I multiply my D1 by 21 plus 24%, I get D2. I multiply D2 by 1 plus 19%, I get D3. I do the same thing for fourth dividend, and now for the fifth dividend I multiply by 1 plus 10%. Okay, so I'm done here. I found this dividends here, very important. Okay, thereafter, you know that once the dividend is constant, all you need to do is divide the next dividend by, and then sorry, divide the next dividend by rs minus g. So here, if it's a fifth year is the constant, in we can definitely find the price in year 4. So basically, I just plug the number here in this formula. If P0 equals to D1 over RS minus G, if it's a P4 is going to be D5, right? If it's a P, here is, if it's a P4, I need this one D5, right? If I want this one is P5, then I need this one is D6. Okay, so I use the same analogy here. I use the same theory here. So basically, my stock price in the expected stock price in year 4 equals to a dividend in year 5 divided by rs minus g. So that's what I did here. So what I did was I divided 3.85 by 11% minus 10%, which is 1%. Okay, so basically it gave me $383.22. So I'm talking about 4 years from now, the expected price of this stock. So basically this one is the present value in year 4 of all these future cash flows for hundreds of years. We didn't calculate, but that's what it's for. So you are counting all these expected future cash flows and finding the present value here. Okay, so now you have this cash flow, this cash flow, and these cash flows. Okay, so let's talk this way. D1, D2, D3, D4 plus P4, these are our cash flows. So for year 1 we have D1, so cash flow number 1, cash flow number 2 D2, cash flow number 3 is D3, and cash flow number 4 is basically the fourth year dividend plus expected price in year 4. Okay, so now look at this one here. Now we have exactly, it's a present value of uneven cash flows, right? It's a present value of uneven cash flow. You remember you did the problems, the cash flows are changing, and you have to find the present value. So to find this present value, I showed you last time, in Excel is pretty easy. Okay, so you can use NPV function. So basically use NPV function, and it says the rate. So the rate here is the discount rate. Don't go, now you are done with the growth. Okay, ignore the growth. So all you need to use is the discount rate. So you have 11%, and then it says comma, and then you just select these numbers and close the parenthesis, and here is your here is your NPV. NPV is equal to present value in this case. So basically is $260.66. If you use your financial calculator, you use the same thing, like you find present value of uneven cash flows. You leave CF0 as 0, and C01 is one, this dividend one. C02 is 2.46, C03 is 2.93, and then C04 is $386.71. And you press NPV and put I by y equals to 11, and then you compute NPV, you get the same number. Okay, does it make sense? So this is very important. Okay, that's why I was thinking probably it's going to be the good idea, to help you to understand this one. That's why I decide to have this webinar. So do you guys have any questions about it? No, everybody comfortable? If so, then we can talk about the exam. If you have any questions, definitely I'm here to help you. I can explain you, or I can guide you. So do you guys have any question about anything? Oh, this one. uh oh, actually, let me show you, let me prove you this one. uh why do we need, I mean, we don't need to go further here. If you if you do the right thing, if you find P3, this is going to be wrong. So always go to the year the dividend gets constant. Okay, but if you cross a little bit, still you don't make any mistake. But if you do in P3 and then you just finish here, you definitely make mistakes. Let me show you. Let me just go is, I find dividend. Let me, by mistake I went to here, so I'm gonna find this one is P8, right? P8 equals to, so basically here let me find it, equals to this guy divided by uh, 11% minus, make sure you put in parentheses, okay, otherwise it's messed up. So you have your stock price, this one. So basically you can keep on doing this one here. This one is D3 and actually D8, D D8 P8. So basically did I find any answer, this answer different? We had the same answer, right? That's why it's so important, like you need to find out when the dividend gets constant, and that's the trick. If you find P3 and solve the problem, definitely you make mistake there. Okay, so if you cross a little bit, that's fine. It just I mean, still the answer is, you keep on doing that for hundreds of years, you still get the same answer, because these numbers, they're gonna be keep on changing, but if you discount all of them, it's still the present value, right? Okay, so I guess you got this one now. All right, so we don't need that. So my the thing is, I would like to prove that you don't need to do more than whatever you are required to do. Okay, because that's not gonna help, because we don't need to do extra work. All right, this one is definitely a little bit tweaking on it, the same problem here. Instead of giving you here 11% discount rate, what I did was, actually that information is not required. So basically I gave you risk-free rate 5% and market rate of return on market 11% and beta. So basically I didn't give you RS. Okay, everything is same except I didn't give you RS. You had to calculate this RS. RS equals to beta times RM minus RF. Okay, and this is also called MRP, market risk premium. RM minus RF is also market risk premium. So basically what I did here was, it's 5% plus beta is 1.75 times in parentheses 11%, which is a return on market RM, minus 5% risk-free rate. So when I do this equation, I get my discount rate 15.5%. That's the only difference here. Okay, so probably, I'm not gonna go in that deep. Probably that's pretty much, I'm thinking. But in case something there, uh, I'm thinking I'm not gonna go different than my exam review. So I gave you the exam review for a reason. I'm not gonna make it complicated. I just go with it. So make sure you can solve these problems. Nobody has asked me anything. Hopefully all of you are practicing those. um, so basically exams is going to be based on that. Any question? Oh, good question. The horizon value is basically, this is the horizon value. Okay, this, in this case, this P4 is the horizon value. If you are given free cash flow, like in the I think that's the question in the assignment, right? You are finding the firm value for 2016. Basically you are using 2017 free cash flow. There are two models. One is stock valuation model, other one is a corporate valuation model. So this one is you find the stock value, other one is you find the value of a company. Okay, that's the same thing basically. So this P4 here is the same as the horizon value. All right, so if you are finding the value of a company, you are using free cash flow for next year and divide by RS minus G, you get the total equity value. And that's called horizon. Is basically, what is the value in the horizon. That means what is the value of all the future cash flow in future time period. Okay, so here is P4 is the horizon value. All right, good. Any other questions? Let me show you the exam review. Do you guys have any questions on these? The reason I'm not giving you the solution, because I want you to learn, and the basically the question gonna be similar. Because if I give you the solution and just change the number, probably just not good. So because you don't get chance to work. I don't want to make like too easy so you don't do anything practice. uh, you know you are here to learn too, right? So it's not only the grades. So you learn something, it's very applicable in your life. That's my whole thing. So if you have any question about any of these questions, these are pretty much the things you did in the homework assignments. So these questions are based on homework assignments. Okay, and okay, let's see this one. Currently sales, this one. Okay, this one is pretty simple. You did effective rate calculation. This one is just like the one I showed you. The dividend was $2.25. constant 25%, I mean 25% for next 3 years, and then the constant. So basically here you find dividend up to year 4 D4. So you find P3, which is horizon value, using D4 dividend, and then you have cash flow 1 2 3. Basically third one is your dividend 3 plus P3. So then you find NPV. That's it. So this one, um, only the thing is, I mean, you just practice this question. It's not gonna be you don't get any surprise other than this, whatever I'm just giving you here. And all of these questions, please review the homework solution. You can just click on the quiz and you can review. Okay. All right. And then if you don't have any questions, then now we can stop this webinar and go from there. But definitely, if you when you are working and still find some issues, please let me know. Uh, I'm pretty much quick in responding emails. I'll help you. All right then. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and I wish you the best of luck for your midterm. But if you find any issues, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. All right. Good night, everybody.